Is there a link between nutrition and anxiety? And if so, why? What foods are good for anxiety? And what foods are bad? What's the best diet for anxiety? Do I need to take supplements? Well, in this video, I'm going to answer all of these questions on our deep dive into how nutrition affects anxiety levels. Hi, I'm Jess. I'm a clinical nutritionist who specializes in mental health and conditions like anxiety. So if you're interested in learning everything you need to know about how food affects your mood, then I hope you subscribe and join our community. I'm really excited for today's video because whether you're completely new to the topic or you've seen some of my previous videos on specific nutrients and anxiety, this video is going to provide you with a very strong foundational understanding of not only why nutrition matters if you have anxiety, but also how transformative making some dietary changes can actually be. Just so you know, because this is an all-encompassing video where we're diving pretty deep, I have really great chapters below, so if you're only looking for X or Y, then please utilize those. So in order to understand why nutrition affects anxiety so much, we need to understand some basics regarding the etiology of anxiety. Anxiety is a state of neural and general physiological arousal. I'm of the belief that most mental health conditions have both a psychological and a physiological component to it. I believe that most chronic health diseases have both a psychological and physiological component to them, and therefore it's really important to address both sides. When we're discussing the role that nutrition plays in anxiety, we're addressing the physiological. But it's my personal experience in both what I've experienced and what I've witnessed and other clients experience is that the stronger our physiological foundation is, the more resilient we are to the psychological or those psychological triggers. So an example of this is maybe what actually sets off your anxiety or your trigger for your anxiety is an external environmental factor. But based upon many factors, some of them could be what you ate for breakfast that day, your nutrient status up to that point, or any of the other things that we're going to discuss today, that might be the difference between you being able to quickly shift out of that mindset, let that trigger go, or become so physiologically aroused that then it snowballs into something like a panic attack. So if we're taking an anxiety medication, we're also working on various pathways of the physiological. The significant mediators of anxiety in the central nervous system are neurotransmitters and hormones like norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, GABA, and cortisol. We're going to discuss today not only how nutrition impacts these mediators, but how in some circumstances they are actually the building blocks for them, which is why it is possible for a root cause of anxiety to be a nutritional deficiency. You'll see how. So while this is not an exhaustive list, the top 3 components we're going to look at regarding the link between nutrition and anxiety today are number 1, nutritional deficiencies, number 2, glutamate and GABA homeostasis, and number 3, blood sugar balance. So let's start off with my favorite topic to talk about as a nutritionist, and that is nutritional deficiencies. This is mainly because I think a lot of people think that what nutritionists do for work or for fun is just taking foods away from people, but honestly, it's quite the contrary, however you say that. My number 1 goal in working with people is actually making sure that they have all of the nutrients they need on hand to either carry out certain physiological processes that may be involved in the etiology of whatever it is that they have going on. Many inflammatory states that take place in the body are actually because we are missing something. We're missing a nutrient that either acts as a catalyst, a cofactor, or a coenzyme in various important physiological processes, whether that's metabolism, detoxification, hormone production, or neurotransmitter synthesis. So which nutritional deficiencies actually cause or worsen anxiety? These are going to be nutrients that are involved in the production of various neurotransmitters, or they're going to be involved in some of those physiological processes that may be a part of what we'll talk about later, like blood sugar or decreasing inflammation. Let's take serotonin, for example. A lot of people think of serotonin as our feel-good, mood-boosting neurotransmitter, but it's also a neurotransmitter that makes us feel calm, at ease, and at peace. And it's for this reason that altered serotonin levels have been implicated in various anxiety disorders. Here is a chart that exhibits the various steps and nutrients involved in serotonin synthesis. As you can see here, there's the amino acid L-tryptophan, there's magnesium, there's B vitamins, and several minerals. So whether it's serotonin synthesis or another important process, you can see how not having the right nutrients on board is going to interrupt this process or make it less efficient. And this is very much how you can end up in a chronic pattern, let's say anxiety, that does have a or likely several nutritional root causes. While we won't discuss each of these, some of the main nutritional deficiencies involved in the etiology of anxiety are the amino acid L-tryptophan, choline, B vitamins, particularly folate and B6, vitamin C, minerals iron, zinc, and magnesium, which I do have a whole video on anxiety and magnesium, I'll link to, that you can go watch if you'd like. Then we have omega-3 fatty acids and probiotics. Now let's talk about glutamate and GABA homeostasis, which are also neurotransmitters. This is a really cool and important topic because when we start talking about which foods are good for anxiety and which foods are bad, like the foods that have an instant impact on our anxiety levels, caffeine would be an example of this. This is really because of this topic right here, glutamate and GABA. The simplest way to understand how glutamate and GABA work is by thinking about them on one of those balancing scales, but in your brain, like this. Glutamate is your excitatory neurotransmitter in your brain that we need for so many important processes. And GABA is our inhibitory neurotransmitter that is responsible for making us feel chill. So when we're talking anxiety, too much glutamate or excitability with not enough GABA can be very problematic. Certain compounds in foods have the ability to either increase the level of glutamate and excitability or decrease the production of GABA. So common triggers like this are caffeine, sugar, and a lot of food additives or flavor enhancers in processed foods, like MSG is a really good example. MSG has also been shown to raise insulin levels and contribute to blood sugar dysregulation, which is going to be the next topic that we talk about regarding anxiety. But before we do that, if you're getting value out of this video so far, then please don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. All right, blood sugar and anxiety. There are so many variables that influence our blood sugar, from the foods that we decide to eat, how we decide to eat them, meaning like the timing, the macronutrient breakdown, etc. But then other factors outside of what we eat, like exercise and stress. What you need to know about blood sugar and mental health is that it's probably the #1 cause of daily mood swings that people completely miss. I have a video titled that, and if you want more in-depth detail and the science behind blood sugar and mood dysregulation, then you can go watch that video here. But when it comes to anxiety, we generally experience anxiety symptoms when we're hypoglycemic, meaning that we have low blood sugar. So that can be that I'm kind of shaky or hangry, where eating actually brings you up a little bit and makes you feel normal again. But this can also be from reactive hypoglycemia. Reactive hypoglycemia is when you eat something that spikes your blood sugar, and because you went up, you have to come down, as the law goes, but you come down lower than you would like. Working on blood sugar balance and stability should really be a foundational aspect of all mood disorders, including anxiety. So at this point, I'm hoping that you have a good foundation of the link between nutrition and anxiety. All that being said, let's move on to some practical applications. What foods are good, what foods are bad, and is there a diet that we can follow that's going to be best for anxiety? So obviously we want to make sure that we're eating foods high in all of the nutrients we looked at before that were common deficiencies. So let's go through these nutrients and point out which foods we'll find these in. Tryptophan, the amino acid, you're going to get in poultry and seafood like salmon and tuna, in addition to eggs and nuts and seeds like pumpkin seeds. The highest dietary sources of choline are going to be liver, but also egg yolks, and then we get a little bit of choline in other meats like chicken breast. B vitamins are a little bit complex because some B vitamins are exclusively found in animal products like B12, while other B vitamins like folate we get mainly from leafy greens. We can also get some B vitamins depending on which vitamin from nuts and seeds, legumes, and grains. Vitamin C you'll find in citrus fruits, leafy greens, cruciferous vegetables, and my favorite source of vitamin C is actually bell peppers or red bell peppers. Iron and zinc you're going to get in red meat, poultry, eggs, and there's also going to be some in plant foods like legumes, but these just aren't as bioavailable, so you need to consume up to 50% more of these foods to get something like the same amount of zinc from an animal source. Magnesium you'll get in fatty fish, nuts and seeds, once again pumpkin seeds, as well as some leafy greens and dark chocolate. Omega-3 fatty acids you'll get from fatty fish. Probiotics you get from fermented foods like sauerkraut, kimchi, yogurts, kefir, kombucha, things like that. So you want to have a diet that contains adequate amounts of all of those things that we listed above. Now let's talk about some of the worst foods for anxiety. This would be caffeine, so coffee, energy drinks. Green tea is a little bit of an exception because green tea actually has the amino acid L-theanine that naturally increases levels of GABA, but generally we want to avoid high caffeinated beverages. Food additives, so MSG, flavor enhancers, food coloring, etc. Gluten can be another common anxiety trigger for people, really any of the top food sensitivities, so whether that's gluten, dairy, corn, or soy. And then we have processed foods and fast foods because these foods contain a lot of the things that we just mentioned. And if we're trying to pick the best diet for anxiety, we essentially just want to pick a diet that mirrors as closely as possible all the foods we want to have and avoids all the foods that we don't want to have. So this could be various modifications of the Mediterranean diet, the anti-inflammatory diet, the paleo diet, a keto diet, etc. All diets are going to have their pros and their cons, but some of the ones that I just mentioned can be good jumping points so that then you can develop something that's personalized for you. Congratulations if you made it this far in the anxiety deep dive. I did mention that I would discuss supplements, so I am going to talk about that really briefly. Supplements are always or should be very personalized and individualized, meaning that whatever supplements that are going to benefit you or your anxiety the most are likely going to be based upon what you discover those anxiety root factor causes to be, nutritional or otherwise. Addressing your diet is really going to be the best place to start. You cannot out-supplement a poor diet. On the other hand, I acknowledge that it can be very challenging to meet all of your nutritional requirements through diet alone. And this is why the number one overarching recommendation I have that applies to most individuals is taking a good comprehensive multivitamin that has really good bioavailable sources of vitamins and minerals. If you don't know where to start with this, check out the link in the description where I have a link to a lot of my favorite multivitamins that you can pick out based off of your sex and your age, and maybe some other properties as well. So other common supplements for anxiety, whether that's herbs, amino acids, etc., can be really effective, but I consider these layer 2 after we have that nutritional foundation down. But if you are interested in learning more about some of these, then check out this video up here that goes over my top 5 supplements that will totally crush crush your anxiety.